Now, um performance appraisal or performance management or appraisal means that you have to evaluate the things. You have to evaluate, and you for those evaluation, for those analysis, we are going to use ratio analysis, which we have already studied in reporting papers in so much in detail. But here we are not going to use the numerical figures. The examiner has given the numerical figures in the questions already. We do only have to compare those figures with, sometimes with the competitor, sometimes with the last year. So we only have to share comparison and write the answer, that what is the difference between 2000, let's suppose 20 to 21, and what are the where the competitors stand, what are their ratio. For example, we first we talk about that gearing ratio. Gearing is debt over equity, that how many debt you have against your equity. So where you stand, and where that ideal ratio for debt over equity is 2 ratio 1. So if you stand on 2 ratio 1, this means that it is good enough, and you have to compare this one with the last year as well as with the competitors. So this is called quantitative analysis. So there are different methods which we can use for performance analysis. The one is, we are dealing with 5 methods today. In this syllabus, you have to consider 4 things through which you are doing the performance analysis. The number 1 is quantitative analysis, number 2 is financial analysis, number 3 is benchmarking, and number 4 is Baldrige. Now, quantitative analysis, this is basically that you are comparing the figures, quantifiable things, quantity. So quantitative arises from the quantity. So this means that you are comparing the figures from, let's suppose, from the sales from the last 5 years. You are going to compare it. This is called quantitative analysis. Then financial analysis is basically, this is we are going to apply certain formula and then compare it. Those formulas are basically the ratios, different ratio, return on capital employed, gearing ratio, and so on. There are so many ratio, liquidity ratio, quick acid ratio. We already discussed this in reporting papers very deeply, but I am going to touch it here also. So quantitative, and the third is benchmarking. Benchmarking is basically, benchmark word mean that there is some benchmark, basically that there is a standard, there is a predefined standard, and we are going to evaluate the things on those predefined standards, that how we are going to do that work. For example, when we join a new company, when we are a new recruit to any place, they will give us job descriptions. Job descriptions are basically the benchmark, because on those job descriptions your evaluation, your annual appraisal is based upon. So this is called benchmarking. So the benchmarking are basically the things which are predefined, and you have to perform according to those, and then after that you are going to evaluate against the benchmark, and there may be two scenarios: whether you performed according to the benchmark, or you meet the targets, or whether you are not going to meet the targets, or you are lacking behind the benchmark. So it will easy for you to point out where you stand. My voice is coming to you all clearly?
Yes, madam, it's coming.
Okay, great. Because I want to confirm this, because I think there is some issue in,
Hello.
hello, it's coming. Hello, Azim,
Yes, madam, it's
can you
coming.
hear me? Yeah, sure. Okay,
Yes.
okay, great. Then the last thing is Baldrige. That is also a form of comparison. So in total, we are going to compare the things according to the data which is provided by the examiner in the question. So in these sort of question, data is provided already in the question. You only have to compare it. You don't have to calculate the ratios, you don't have to calculate the things. You only have to uh, analyze and make it sure that whether you are analyzing rightly or appropriately or not. So in performance analysis, today's agenda, performance analysis, we have to evaluate 4 things. Number 1, through quantitative analysis. Number 2, financial analysis. Number 3, benchmarking. And the number 4 is Baldrige. Now, quantitative analysis. It is very likely in the exam that examiner will provide tables and data in order to provide some of the information that is needed in order to properly perform the strategic analysis, both external and internal. it will be vital that students can both interpret and use this information in their answers. Yes, this is very important. Sometimes students are not going to use the data which is provided by the examiner. The main purpose of providing data is that you have to use those data for the comparison, and you have to use that data in your answers as well. So now first we can see then the example. The following data is given of sales of cinema tickets in a large country over the last 2 years. In 2007, company A, B, C, D and others. So there are like this. 2008, company A 2 points same. In 2007, company B 1.8, but company B rise in sales, that is 2.0. Then 2.2 decline in sale, 2.1. Then 2.1 and 1.9 decline in sales. 1.6 and 1.7 rise in sales. In total industry sales will be the same for both of the years, 9.7 and 9.7. So analyze the competitive nature of the cinema industry in this country. How we are going to analyze it? Tell me how we are going to analyze it when we are writing the answer. Firstly, we start that the industry is working in a very volatile and very dynamic environment, because cinema industry, basically the one who goes to cinema, there are two or three bases whether they go. One is that they like to see movies, then they go to the cinema. Then they have extra income, they have that purchasing power, because this is not a type of necessity, this is out of necessity, so this is luxury. If you afford, if you have extra income, if you have purchasing power, then you will go to the cinema. So it will depend upon the disparities of income and wealth, and we will evaluate this thing on this perspective as well. So in 2007 and 2008, both total industry sales will be the same. So this means that the income is not going to be disturbed in both of the year, because the total people are going in this and the revenue is the same, but it is fluctuating between the companies. So the companies, you have to evaluate that people want to spend, but they are switching the company because they something is lacking. So why they are moving towards other company B, improve themselves and the sales will increase in 2008. So you have to compare all these factors when you are writing the answer. Got it? And why the other company sale is declining in the coming year. So what were the facilities which you can offer, because from 2.1 they are drastically coming to 1.9. This means that something has to be some work has to be done by the company D to improve the sales in the coming year, because it is falling down, it is coming down. So what are the factors which are affecting the sales you have to consider when you are evaluating this. Now, financial statements. What are financial statements? Can you tell me what are financial statements, as you all are accountants and to be accountants? What are financial statements? Any of you? Azim, Anwar, can you tell me? Hello?
Profit and loss, balance
Financial
sheet,
statements
cash
are
flows,
basically
statement of equity.
So, financial statements are basically when we ask about financial statements, most of the persons tell the same which you are telling, that statement of uh, profit and loss, statement of changes in equity, statement of balance position. So this basically
notes.
these are the types of financial statements. That what financial statements are basically, that how the things are recorded for the company. So there are different ways by which we can record, through profit and loss account, through balance sheet, through statement of changes in equity, with notes to the accounts. These all are the cash flow statement. These all are the types of the things which we are going to use the record of the financial info to making the record of the financial information for the company. So we will address the same the you can say that the concern statement which we need. For example, if we want to evaluate the liabilities and equity, we will go for balance sheet rather than we will go for profit and loss account. So notes to the accounts also help shareholders to know the in detail of the financial statement, because they are not used to the jargons of the company. They are layperson, they are only investors, they are investing their money, they don't know the jargon, because every field have their own jargons. If I say to you that what depreciation is, and it is expense, it is charged in the profit and loss account, but a layperson cannot understand that what depreciation is. It is a jargon for accountancy. So, you notes to the accounts basically provide the details in a simple language, in a easy language, so they can understand it very well. So examiner might provide sets of financial statements, and the student must use to pull out the key messages and issues. There will be some important techniques points to this. What are three? You have to choose 3 or 4 key ratios. You don't have to apply all the ratios, because the you firstly, when you want to solve any requirement, you have to see that what marks are allocated to those requirements. For example, if it is carrying only 10 marks, then why you have to put so much effort to apply all the ratios on that question? You have to only pull out 3 to 4 key ratios, and on those 3 or 4 key ratios you have to express your answer, not more than that. There is no need to illustrate the formula or calculation. No, you don't have to illustrate the formula and calculation, you only have to compare. Only one comparator should be needed. Focus on the cause. You have to use only one comparator, whether the last year or the competitor which the examiner is asking to you. It is specific in the, you can say, the requirement. Focus on the cause of any changes and what this might tell us about the organization position. Yes, after that evaluation, where the organization stand, where the organizational position is. So you don't have to get into the details of all the ratios. You have to pick only 2 or 3 ratios which are particularly applying on that particular scenario. You are not going into the detail of each and every ratio and then finally get into that thing. Now, what are the ratios? Now we are going into the revision of financial ratios, because we have already done it so many times in performance management, in F9 paper, in F5 paper, then F7 paper. You already done this financial ratios. I am only going to revise it, and then you have to use these ratios to evaluate the questions. Now, the mechanics of ratio analysis are repeated here for revision purposes. Profitability ratios. What profitability ratios basically comprises of return on capital employed, which means operating profit before interest and tax. Operating profit means profit before interest and tax. Not, we are not deducting interest and tax, because that will be net profit then. Operating profit divided by capital employed into 100. If you do that, this will give you return on capital employed. That how much return you are getting by the capital which you have employed already. So the return on capital employed should be calculated by operating profit divided by capital employed into 100. Gross margin, gross profit divided by sales into 100. The net margin, net gross profit means same, that the tax will be not deducted from that profit. Then net margin, if we want to calculate net margin after all the things we have to be deducted, then net profit after deducting interest and tax divided by sales into 100. Then return on employed, that is called return on equity, that is called profit after tax and performance dividends divided by shareholder funds. Profit after tax and preference dividends, we have given dividends as well, dividends which we have, which the amount which we are going to deliver to the shareholders. After deducting that, after deducting tax, the profit which the company have divided by shareholders funds, the capital employed, into 100%. So these all will give you profitability ratios, that where the company stands in terms of profit, because we are calculating after deducting all the amounts. Then efficiency ratios. If we calculate the efficiency of the operations, then we are going to address any 2 or 3 ratios from this side. You have to read the scenario very carefully, that what scenario is it addressing, what sort of information the examiner gave. If he is giving the information and the information is revolving around the profitability, so you will go for profitability ratios. If he is revolving around efficiency of the operations, efficiency of the company, then you will go for these sort of ratios. If he is going for liquidity, then you will go for liquidity ratios. If the examiner is addressing gearing in the scenario, you will go for gearing ratios. If the examiner is addressing investors in the scenario, you will go for investor ratio. So it is very categorically defined by the examiner that which ratios you have to pick on the priority basis. Now efficiency ratios. Efficiency ratios, asset turnover, sales divided by capital employed. How you calculate asset turnover? That by utilizing the asset, how much turnover you are getting. This is sales divided by capital employed. Then return on capital employed is equal to net margin into asset turnover. The figure which are arising in the asset turnover, we are going to multiply with the net margin, then we will get return on capital employed. Now receivable days. Receivable days are basically those which we are getting from the debtors. This is inflow to the company, and payables are basically outflow for the company because you have to pay to the creditors. So receivable days should be shorter and payable days should be longer, because if the payable days are lesser and the receivable days are longer, there will be a crunch of cash in the company, and cash is the blood for the business. So the cash liquidity thing arises in the company if you are not managing these days properly. So what are the receivable days? Receivable balance divided by credit sales into 365, because receivable arises when we are going for credit sales, so they have to pay. So some percentage of the credit sales straight away count for as provision for bad doubtful debts or bad debts. So you have to make the company is mentally prepared that 2% of that thing, 2% of the credit sale will be going for bad debts, but not more than that, because you are mentally prepared for only 2%. If it crosses the limit, if it crosses that, it is going beyond that percentage, this means that you are not working properly and you are not reducing your receivable days, so your treasury department is not working properly. Now payable days, payable balance divided by credit purchases into 365, because you have to pay, because you are purchasing the raw material on credit terms, so you have to pay. So what are the days which we have to which is the benchmark to pay the creditors, and what is the benchmark of the days to receive it from receivables? So it should be very clear to you. Now inventory days, inventory divided by cost of sales into 365 days. So this is also inventory. Inventory days should also be lesser, because the more the inventory you stock, the deterioration, the depreciation also come, and the holding cost you have to employ as well, and that holding cost ultimately will pass to the cost of sales. So the price of the inventory will ultimately goes up. So inventory days should be also lesser. Then revenue per employee is equal to sales divided by number of employees. Yes, how many sales is done by the number of employees? So that will give you the idea that how much revenue we are getting through each employee. So this is basically the efficiency ratios, that how efficient the company and the employees are working to give organization profit. Then liquidity ratios. Liquidity ratios is basically current ratio and quick ratio. Current ratio is equal to current assets minus current liability. Current assets is basically which are readily convertible into cash, and current liabilities which you have to pay immediately. So current assets divided by current liabilities, this is called liquidity, because you know that these are the things which are readily convertible into cash, so this will count as a cash. So current assets divided by current liabilities is equal to your current ratio. Quick ratio or asset test ratio is equal to current assets minus inventory divided by current liabilities. Sometimes for quick ratio we minus inventory from the current assets and then divided by current liabilities. So it will give you quick asset ratio or quick ratio. Then gearing ratios. Gearing is basically means debt. Financial gearing, how we are going to calculate financial gearing, is equal to debt over equity. Debt is liability and equity which you have capital. So it is basically that the debt and the equity should be equal. That's why then your balance sheet should be balanced. No? That's why financial gearing is dependent that If equity is the same and debt is same amount of equity, this means that if something arise, we can sell that equity and pay back that loan. So the financial perspective of the company are stable, they are not fluctuating. Now financial gearing, that is debt divided by debt plus equity. So sometimes we calculate debt by equity, sometimes debt divided by debt plus equity. It is all upon you if you want which data is given in the question. Now investors ratio, dividend cover, profit after tax divided by total dividend. Total profit after tax which we get after paying the tax, the profit figure divided by total dividend which you have to pay to the shareholders. This will give you dividend cover, that how much dividend cover you can offer to your investors, that how much you can say that this amount of money we can pay you if you invest in the company. This will be the, you can get a raw idea of the dividend cover. Then interest cover. Interest cover is profit before interest and tax divided by interest. Yes. What is the interest cover for the company? That the profit which is coming before interest and tax divided by interest. Then earning per share. Earning per share is profit after tax and preference dividends divided by number of shares into 100. This is earning per share. The profit which you get after paying tax and preference dividend. There are two types of dividends, that is ordinary dividends and preference dividends. So firstly we prefer to the preference dividends, then if the profit remains, then we will go for ordinary dividends. So the profit after tax and preference dividends divided by number of shares, how much shares is in the company, in 200, then we will get earning per share. Then what is the earning per share for the shareholders? Then PE ratio. Then PE ratio is basically share price divided by earning per ratio. The figures which we get in earning per ratio, this will be divided by share price. Then you will get PE ratio, price earning ratio. These are the investor ratios. And when an investor wants to invest in any company, they will study the investor ratios of the company, and all the ratios is published in the financial statements, because everybody want to assess those, and these are presented to the shareholders in the annual general meeting as well, because through these ratios we are going to understand where the company is standing, what is the liquidity position of the company, what the investor getting after investing in that company, what is the gearing and gearing level of these company. So the stability of the company is determined by these ratios, and it should be communicated to all investors and the shareholders and the employees because they want to assess the company's position basis upon these quantitative analysis. Now what are these are the financial measures which we studied before is financial measures, because all the facts and figures are involved in those things. But some things are evaluating on the non-financial aspect as well. Non-financial aspect consists of that, for example, competitiveness. How competitive is the company? How is the company is going to take a competitive advantage? So KPIs, basically CSFs are critical success factors, and KPIs are the quantifiable form of CSFs, and these are called key performance indicators. They indicate that you are on right track and you are ultimately going to achieve your CSFs, and if your CSFs are achieved, your goals are going to achieve, and if your goals are going to achieve, your mission and vision is going to be hit. That's why KPI, these all are linked. The first step is KPI, then CSF, then goals, then mission and vision. So CSF is competitiveness. So how we are assured that we are competitive? If the sales growth by product or services, measure of customer base, then customer base is increasing. Relative market share and position, yes, we gather the more market share of the company. So these are the KPIs which indicate that we are competitive and we are achieving a CSF. Now the next is resource utilization. This is also CSF, and how we are going to ensure that this CSF is going to be achieved through KPIs. Now what KPIs? Efficiency, measurement of resource planned against consume. Yes, actual comparison of actual and budget, as we already know that thing in performance management. We have to compare the actual with the budget, and there are two you can say that variances arises. One is favorable and one is adverse. If you consume less than budget, this means that the variance is favorable. But if you consume more than the budgeted, this means that you have that is adverse. So this is the thing through which we can that indicate that resource utilization is effective. Then measurement of resources available against those used. Then the last is productivity measurement. Yes, how you are going to produce, how number of units you are going to produce. This is called, this is, if you are producing more, this means that you are utilizing your resources effectively. Then quality of service. Now quality of service is basically a non-financial parameter. How we are going to evaluate it? Quality measure in every unit. How we are going to ensure that the quality is not compromised in each and every unit. Evaluate suppliers on the basis of quality. Yes, you are not going to evaluate the supplier and you are not taking the raw material from that supplier who is giving you the lesser price. You are taking raw material from that supplier who is giving you quality. Quality is not compromised, because quality raw material will ultimately lead to quality product. So the quality raw material matters a lot. Number of customer complaints received and number of new accounts lost or gained. How many customers retained to you? There is customer loyalty, and if they come to you again and again, this means that you are on the right track. Are you all there? Hello.
Yes, yes, ma'am. We are here.
One more thing, that Azim, if the session expire, please tell me before that, so I will log in again.
Okay.
Okay. Now the next non-financial parameter is customer satisfaction. How satisfied is your customer? Because that's matter a lot. Because if customer is satisfied, then customer loyalty build up, and that loyalty will ultimately lead to the brand of the product, because that will ultimately become brand, because it will become the word of mouth, and the name is memorized to that person, and then ultimately it will turn into a brand. Now, what is brand basically? Brand is basically that is that when the customer perceive that he is getting value for his money, that is called branded product, because he is not going to bargain for that product, that you have to give me more in the lesser price. They are not going for that thing, because they know which I am, what the amount I am paying, I am getting value for that money as well. Quality is not compromised. Then the product will turn into branded product. Now, customer satisfaction, speed of response to customer needs. How you are going to satisfy, how frequently, how immediately you are satisfying the customer needs. Informal listening, by calling a certain number of customers each week. You are taking regularly feedback from the customers. Number of customer visit to the factory or workplace. Yes. Then number of factory and non-factory manager visit to the customers. That how closer you are customer to. If customer wants to visit you and you want is visiting the customer, this means that your relationship is very strong, the bonding is very strong between customer and the company, so they are not going anywhere. Now, quality of working life. Now, what is the quality of, how you can assess that the employees are satisfied in that environment and the quality of working life is maintained? Days absence. If the employee are going to absent, if there are absenteeism is less, this means that they are satisfied with their working life, so they are not going to absent. Why employees want to absent? Because if they are, when they are not satisfied their work in their working life. Labor turnover. Yes, the turnover is less. People are not going to leave you, they stays with you, the loyalty is with you. So the turnover is less, this means the quality of working life has been maintained. Overtime, people are doing overtime by their own will, this means that you own the organization. Then measure of job satisfaction. If you are satisfied with your job and you don't want to switch it, this means that the quality of working life is maintained. And one more reason is, and if you are also satisfied that you are doing something innovative, you are doing challenging tasks, this means that your quality of working life is maintained. Now, innovation, how we ensure that the company is going for innovation. Proportion of new products and services to the old one. Yes, how many new products you are launching, how many new services you are giving. So if you are giving more services, new products, sorry, new, if you are giving more new services, new products, this means that the innovation is the part of the organizational activities. New product or service sales levels. Yes, how sales increases if you offer new product or sales. If you are offering new product and sale with enhanced quality, this will ultimately lead your it will ultimately increase your sales. This means that innovation is part of the organizational practices. Now responsiveness mean lead time is basically the time which you take to respond. This is called lead time. Now responsiveness, order entry delays and errors. Yes, what the time you are going to take for delays and errors, how much time you are going to rectify it. Wrong blueprints or specifications. Yes, if they are specifying wrong things, how much time you are going to take it and do it right. Long setup times and large lots. High defect count. Yes, if the defect count is so much, this and you are not responsive to that thing, this means that ultimately the customer loyalty and the quality is not going to maintain. So you have to make sure that the defect count will be less. You should be responsive to that thing. Machine that breakdowns. If your machine is breaking down frequently, and if the machine break, your productivity stop, and if your productivity stop, it will ultimately lead to less profits, because if you don't produce, you don't sell, and if you don't sell, there will be no profits. So you should respond to these things very quickly. The lead time should be very low, less. If the lead time will be less, and you are more responsive, this means that you will sort out these things very frequently. Then quality of output. Yes, output basically the final product, the final services. What is the quality of that thing? Return from customers. If the return from the customers are lesser, this means the quality is not compromised by the company, because there are no returns from the customer. Reject rates. If the rejection rate is very low, this means the processes are finely designed, and the products are not going to reject at any cost, because the quality is not compromised at all. Then reworking cost. Yes, if there is a rejection, you have to rework it, and that reworking cost is also ultimately become part of the cost of sales. So this you have to do, that the reworking cost will be less if you are working. And first of all, you have to make sure that the rejection rate will be less, the quality is not compromised, because the reworking is basically the more cost which is add to the cost of sales. Then warranty cost. Yes, if there is warranty, that you if you buy let's suppose if you buy something and you will give 6 months warranty, and if you use quality products, quality spare parts, quality things, the warranty would not be claimed. But if you compromised anything, the warranty cost should be incurred. So you have to make sure that warranty cost also not not to be included in the cost of sales. That's why, if all these things are favorable, this means that the quality of output is not compromised at all. Then flexibility, ability to react to changing demand in a changing environment. Flexibility, basically there are two words. The one is adaptability and the second is flexibility. Firstly, if I talk about the companies, 10 years back, they believe in adaptability, they adapt the situations. But nowadays companies said that you have to be flexible enough to cope up with the change. If the environment is changing, because we are working in a dynamic world, we are working in a frequently changing environment, so if the environment change, you have the ability to cope up with that environment. So this is the ability which is called flexibility. And as human nature is basically, human beings are basically, you can say that they are very consistent, they are reluctant to change. This is human nature. If something is going to change in our routine, our apprehensions are there, that how I am going to cope up with. So employers should take their employees into confidence when they are introducing new things. Because if they are not taking the employees into confidence, they are not flexible enough, the results will be not getting the as the requirement of the company. So the flexibility is the ability to react to change and to the changing environment. The product service introduction flexibility, yes, how you are going to change your product or services according to the environment, because if the environment change, you have to change your product, because if the customer wants different products, you have to change your product features, you have to update them. And if the sorry if you are providing a service, you belongs to a service industry, and the other person wants service in another manner or in a different way, you have to adopt that, because you are flexible enough to do that thing. So for example, if I belong to a service industry, because I am providing services to you, I am giving classes to you, I am giving services to you. So if I address two or more classes, if I giving two classes, let's suppose the same subject SBL, I am teaching two batches or three batches, then style of my teaching is going to vary from each and every class. It is different in every class, because of the flexibility, because it depends upon the other person, because it depends upon the person who are sitting in front of me. It depends upon that thing. So I don't say that my other class take this topic and study